Health Service has warned of a possible cholera outbreak here in Accra due to the current unsanitary conditions in the capital coupled with the onset of the rains. The Greater Accra Regional Health Directorate of the service says waste disposal in the capital has become a major challenge following the shutdown of the Accra compost plant. Well, in January 2013, the Ghana Health Service declared a cholera outbreak in the Ashanti region. 18 people died and 310 cases were registered in the region. Majority of infected persons were women and children. So we know that the compost plant has been shut down. Some parts of Accra very dirty, but we're living in it. So how can we protect ourselves? We're speaking to Dr. Kingsley Bakpo-Addo, who's a medical officer with the Ghana Health Service. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning.
So this alerts, how seriously should we take it?
Yeah, this alert should be taken very seriously because unfortunately for us in this part of the world, cholera is still a disease of immense public health concern. It is a disease that can take a life within hours of onset. So it's important that we adhere to measures to try and prevent ourselves from getting the disease.
Okay, so if somebody's watching us right now and the person is saying, oh, there's no trash in front of my house, there's no open gutter, how can I get this cholera they're talking about?
Cholera is basically an acute infection of the intestines by a bacterium known as Vibrio cholerae. And you get this bacteria into your system by eating food or drinking water that has been contaminated with the bacterium. And this contamination is usually through fecal material from somebody else who has the condition and has shed the bacteria in their waste, and it has found its way into your food or water. So you may not see any trash in front of your house or building, but you may eat food or drink water that has been contaminated with the bacterium.
But of course, if you live in a dirty environment, then you're likely to get it quicker.
Yes, if you live in a dirty environment, then you have more challenges with your waste disposal, sewage disposal, and then access to clean water. And then because of the dirty environment, the insanitary conditions also facilitate contamination of food that you may buy or prepare, or water that you find yourself drinking.
So what are you saying? I mean, around this time, don't eat outside? Is that the message?
No. Around this time, there are certain precautions that you need to take. With regards to food, preferably if you could eat food that you cook yourself at home, that would be the best, because then you know the conditions under which the food was prepared. For most
of us, that is like very impossible.
Well, so if you have to buy food, then there are certain things that you need to look out for. First of all, you would want to know how the food was prepared, where it was prepared, if possible. How
would you know? I mean, the watches seller sells by the roadside. I don't know where she comes from.
Well,
all I know is she's come to set up and I'm going to buy.
In that case, you'll be able to look around.
Okay.
You know, the conditions under which the food is sold. Is it covered? Is the food exposed to flies or dust? Do you have any places of convenience very close by, or uncovered gutters and rubbish close to where the food is being sold? Is the vendor selling under hygienic conditions? The plates and then the other utensils that are being used and with which you will be served, what's the condition of these things like? You would also look out for the general environment, like I mentioned, and then the food must also be served warm.
Okay.
So looking at some of these things, you would have an idea of the possibility of getting the condition from that particular vendor.
So how do I know that I have cholera? What would I be exhibiting?
Cholera is, like I said, can be very fatal even within a few hours after you have ingested enough of the bacterium to cause the disease. And
so it could kill you?
It could kill you within hours.
Oof.
It could kill you within hours. And it is characterized by painless, profuse, watery stool. It's described as explosive. That is in the severe cases. And this stool is characteristically, it has an appearance which has been described as rice water stool. So it looks pale, and then it has an inoffensive smell, sometimes a bit fishy, a fishy odor, and usually not accompanied by fever.
Not accompanied by fever.
Most of the
That's
time.
a killer.
And it's also a painless
everything
diarrhea.
that you're saying, I mean, if you're running, you may not really think it is cholera.
But the diarrhea is very profuse. Now, you may also be vomiting clear fluid, and then a person who is experiencing the condition may have sunken eyes. The skin looks
Is
dry.
Sunken eyes?
Well, the eyes appear to be receding into the sockets, and it's because the person is losing or has lost a lot of body fluid.
Okay.
So this person would also have a dry mouth, a dry tongue. If it's a child, the child may cry without any tears coming. The skin becomes very dry and then loses its elasticity.
Is that still the child?
No, the child, usually.
So the child is just crying without any tears. Is it because they're going through some sort of pain?
Not necessarily, but if a child is crying, normally you would expect tears to be produced.
So how many, because I mean the child obviously will not be able to tell you what he or she is going through. But if I'm using the pool, then how often should the child poo for me to know that there might be a problem?
That would depend on the age of the child, but if it's excessive, let's say every hour or every 30 minutes to an hour, the child has the urge, and then you realize that it's a large amount of stool with the characteristic that we've described, then it should alert you that the child may have contracted this disease.
Okay.
So you also have other signs and symptoms such as little or no urine production. It's also because the person is losing a lot of fluid.
So ideally, how many times should you urinate in a day?
It depends on how much fluid you take in, and then the temperature, and then the activities you are involved in.
Okay.
But if you are hydrating adequately, then your urine should not be too concentrated. So that's how you
If you say too concentrated?
The color, if your urine looks very yellow or dark, then it probably means you're not taking in enough fluids. So if it's very clear, then it implies that you are having enough hydration.
Okay.
So the number of times depends on how much fluid you are taking in and the temperature and your activities during the day.
Okay. So is this something that we can prevent?
Yes, cholera can be prevented. And you can prevent cholera by being careful about what goes into you. That is the food.
As in what you eat.
So
everything comes down to what you eat.
Everything comes down to what you eat. It's described as a fecal-orally transmitted disease, meaning that fecal matter with the bacterium has found its way into your mouth. So basically, it's contaminated food or water or anything that goes into your mouth. So firstly, you would want to be sure the food you are eating, how it was prepared, and whether it's being served hot or warm in clean utensils. Then you also want to be particular about the food, the water you drink. If unfortunately you don't have access to treated water, then it's advised that you boil the water that you drink, and you use the same boiled water to wash your hands, wash utensils, wash your face, or brush your teeth. Now, you would also be careful about fruits and vegetables and raw foods, especially. The food you eat should also be well cooked, so you should be cautious about food that's partially cooked.
Okay, but if you said be careful with vegetables and fruits, I know that as doctors, that's one of the things that you promote, that we eat vegetables and fruits every day.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it all boils down to how you prepare before you eat it.
Okay.
Yeah, with the vegetables, they need to be well washed. Unfortunately, sometimes vegetables are grown in areas where they use water that may be contaminated to irrigate it. Now, with the fruits too, we would recommend that you thoroughly wash the fruits before you eat. And
what if you're not eating the outside? You're eating what is inside.
Well, that is a bit. It's better if the fruit is one that can be peeled, because after washing it, you still have to wash it though.
Okay.
But then after washing, let's say banana, you would then peel it and then you have some, I mean, it's not really exposed to the environment, but you still have to wash it very well. Fruits like grapes and probably mangoes, where you don't really peel it, they carry a higher risk of transmitting the disease. So especially if you buy such fruits from vendors along the streets, it's very important that you take your time to wash them very well before you consume them.
And I'm worried about our children because, you know, they're in school. Some of them will buy food and we don't know the source of it. How can we protect our children?
Well, the protection to give is to educate the older ones and teach them. One other important preventive measure is with regards to hand washing. Yes, so especially under clean running water with soap before you eat, especially, and then after visiting a place of convenience. So we can educate our children, the older ones, and then we are also doing our bit to educate their care providers and then the vendors who serve food around these school children to put in measures to avoid giving the disease to the children.
So if you have cholera and I'm sitting by you, we're having a chat, can I just get it?
No, cholera is not described as contagious because you don't get it from everyday person-to-person interactions. Yes, you would actually have to ingest, like we already said, food or water that has been contaminated with the bacterium.
Okay, so this alert that has been issued, how long is it going to be on for? What are some of the things that you have to see, for instance, before you lift it?
Well, this alert has been given at this time because, unfortunately, cholera has been a perennial endemic disease, which we usually record higher numbers when we enter the rainy season. And this is related to the floods that worsen the already poor sanitary conditions. So the preventive measures are expected to be applied all year round, but especially around this time when, from past experience, we tend to have high numbers. So we are intensifying on the education and then encouraging people to be very worried about what they do during this period when we usually record our cholera cases. Okay,
so say you're not able to prevent it and you have it, what should you do immediately?
Immediately you suspect you may have cholera, or you suspect somebody you live with may have cholera. The important thing to do is to start some first aid at home. So you start by rehydrating, which is the mainstay of treatment.
Okay, so that's drinking a lot of water?
Yes, if you had access to ORS, which is sold in most pharmacy shops and outlets, you can get ORS, prepare it, and then you begin to consume as much as possible.
Okay.
If you didn't have ORS, then you could drink coconut juice or water or any other fluid that you could lay your hands on. And then as you begin to do this, then you report to the nearest health facility for assessment and then further management. Now, if somebody in the house or yourself shows any symptoms, you also need to be careful of your fomites, that's your clothing and bedding, and then the waste that you give off should also be disposed of properly to prevent it from being transmitted to food that somebody else may be eating later on.
So this, I mean, largely we know it as pure water that we buy from the roadside, you know, every now and then. Are they absolutely safe?
That would be difficult for me to say because I think they are prepared by different companies under different conditions. So probably those that the appropriate agencies have checked and sanctioned as meeting the laid down requirements, then they should be okay. So if it's pure water or bottled water from a company and it's been certified properly, then you shouldn't have a problem.
Okay, so this what you told us, if you have cholera, what you should do, does the same thing apply to when a child has it?
Yes, the same thing applies to when a child has it. You start rehydration as much as you can. ORS, coconut juice, plain water or any other fluid, and then you immediately proceed to the nearest health facility.
Okay, so what is if it's a baby?
If it's a baby, you are encouraged, and you suspect, you are encouraged to breastfeed more. And then in like manner, you get to the health facility for a doctor to have a look at the child and determine the best course of treatment.
Okay. All right. So, finally, just before we go, I want you to give us some pointers. Again, I know you've said a lot, but things that will stick on our minds.
Okay. So, finally, I would say that cholera is a disease that can be very fatal within hours, but at the same time, it is very preventable and treatable. You can prevent cholera by being very mindful of the food you eat and then the water you drink. Make sure you eat food that has been well cooked and served hot. You should avoid raw fruits and vegetables, and where you have to, you make sure you wash them very well. You need to adopt hand washing, proper hand washing under flowing water with soap before you eat and after visiting a place of convenience. We also need to keep our environments clean, keep rubbish covered, and then avoid choking our gutters with rubbish. And then if you suspect you may have cholera or somebody in your household may have cholera, then you need to immediately start rehydration, ORS. Be careful with the fomites of the person, clothing, towels, and beddings. And then you report to the nearest health facility immediately for further evaluation and treatment.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Kingsley Kpakpo-Addo, Medical Officer with the Ghana Health Service. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'm happy you're not saying don't eat the wache, but eat it when it is hot.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you. Stay with us.